2024. What an absolute year it has been. It's been one of the years that we've had. uh, a year with a lot of laughing, crying, knowledge gaining, and silliness ensuing. And this is a special episode, an idea that came to me while browsing my junk mail, like every normal person does on occasion. So today, I will not be bleeding your ears for an hour or more. Today, I will be sharing the year of the show in the style of a yearbook and hopefully starting a fun little tradition moving forward. So sit down, relax, and enjoy the recap in the form of a book of nostalgia that you only grab when your brain reminds you of some random thing from your youth. Quotes, superlatives, clubs, and stats from the year. All that on another episode of The Remedial Scholar.
I feel I was denied critical, need to know information.
Belongs in a museum, bro.
Stop skipping your remedial class.
Welcome, everyone, to The Remedial Scholar. I am your host, Levi. Today, as you might have put together, is a special episode. I think it's going to be fun to highlight the journey that we've been on this year. And if you're new to the show, don't really worry about spoilers because it's all already happened. In fact, I might even say that this episode is one you probably shouldn't even turn off. It's a good episode to start with because it's going to showcase both the highlights of the year from the show, but also, give you a good idea of my personality. And if you enjoy that, then you'll enjoy the show. So, yeah, if you do enjoy it, you got a lot of homework to catch up on. The idea itself of the yearbook style year-end episode comes from, the genesis of the show, actually. I originally was going to call this show History Class Dropout, but that title kind of felt clunky. So I used the same idea, I took that idea and kind of went into thesaurus mode of, what are some things that are similar to that? And that's how I came up with the Remedial Scholar. I can't remember now, but I feel like it was partly helped by some friends. I might have workshopped some ideas or got some ideas from people. Anyway, the spirit of the show, being a knockoff educational experience, is present in this year-end yearbook idea. Just like a yearbook, we're going to have, superlatives, clubs, stuff like that. And it's kind of a little silly thing, but it's nice to, reflect. And also, it's just a fun thing, I guess. It's a fun little thing to do. But yeah, I want to lead off with some changes made to the show over this last year. Obviously, if you've been listening, you know that there's a lack of music in the last few episodes. You also know that there's probably been a lack of episodes. But the reason for the lack of music is that I actually had some computer issues recently and ended up reformatting one of my drives on my computer, which is not really important, but essentially I lost a lot of my files related to the podcast, both this one and West of Nowhere. And the long and short of that is that, I don't have a lot of these certain files, so I accidentally wiped a drive of all the files that I had. I had like a special folder. It was podcast stuff, and I had all my stuff in that folder, and I didn't make any backups. So I lost the background music, both versions, the old one that I started the show with, and then the more recent one. And yeah, I was able to find some other backups, which were basically just old copies of the show that I had made by subsequently moving the drives in which the show was held. And because of my lack of organizational skills, I was able to find some things that could kind of get me going back. Like I found all the original logos and stuff, and then the background for YouTube and the intro video, which was cool, but had I lost quite a bit of stuff. But now I have backups of backups of backups, but I did lose, quite a bit. I lost a lot of the newer designs in the merch store. So yeah, if you bought like the vintage looking Victorian style logo shirt that only exists there, I'm trying to recreate it, but it's not going to be the exact same. So anyway, that's why there's no music. The justification of that fact is also even if I did find it, I think it's kind of better without it. I got this new mic. I'm more clear, warm sounding, and loud. I don't need music to fill the void. That, and also I tried 2 different background tracks, and both of them had different people who didn't like it for a variety of reasons. That's kind of it. I just focus on the actual show itself and the recording and going from there. I don't need a bunch of extra stuff in that. But anyway, in addition to that, I mentioned briefly the frequency of episodes this year has definitely been varied. I struggled at the beginning of the year with school, work, and both podcasts. And then as I entered the spring, broke my leg, and it seemed like a never-ending stream of stress. And I just got to the point where all I could really do was get up and go to work. So that was kind of it. Not that I really owe you guys an explanation or anything, but I do like to kind of let you guys know. So yeah, anyway, I'm working on it. I feel like I'm more productive now than I have been. I'm working on trying to not let my interests and hobbies fade into the background. It's kind of a therapy thing, but also like being medicated for my various neurodiverse kind of issues. And getting back into the gym also, which is something I've been doing since I got injured the first full week recently. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. So anyway, all these things have kind of allowed me to arrange my schedule that I was doing, which was nothing productive, and being more productive. So that's why you're seeing more of me, and hopefully that continues to go. In addition, your boy turned 30. Yeah, that's right. Crazy how time flies. I don't really feel like it mentally sometimes, but then when I spend any amount of time interacting with children that I'm not related to and teenagers in general, I'm slowly reminded that I am turning into an old man, trying to relate to the younger people I work with. And I'm like, do they actually enjoy my time with them, or are they just like placating me? They're just like, nah, this old guy, he just wants to, he just wants a friend. So anyway, turning into an old man, which is bad because I hate old people, as you know. All right, enough about me and my boring stuff. Let's get to the show. The class of Remedial Scholar 2024. These are the episodes and that we did this year. So Alexander the Great, the March of the Macedonian, Ancient Maya, Hidden Not Lost, the Coal Wars of West Virginia, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the Final Ascent, the Challenger disaster, Financial Crimes in Ancient Times, the Gunpowder Plot of 1605, the Harlem Hell Fighters, the History of Christmas, the History of Mother's and Father's Day, Hometown History, Shadows of Success, the Decline of Historic Companies, the Syrup Syndicate, Quebec's Maple Syrup Empire, the Not-So-Great Emu War, When Paint Bleeds, Vandalism, and the Resurrection of Art. So that's an alphabetical order, which made sense in my head, but maybe not the right way to do it, I suppose. That's the list. So now you know. So now we get to look at those episodes and find out which superlatives, or like, I don't know, like, I say that word sometimes and then people are like, well, I don't know what that means. So I guess I should probably explain it. In your book, when it's like most likely to run a business or most likely to, get arrested or something. That's what a superlative is. So now we're going to find out which episodes got the big honors. First up, we have the class clown. And in my head, there are a few funny, oh boy, back up. There are a few things funnier than people unable to quell ferocious nature of the emu. The Not So Great Emu War, which was actually written by a friend of the show. And that is the second episode of the year, debuting on January 8th, 2024. The story was just so ridiculous and more interesting than it sounds on paper. The whole thing really not lasting more than a few expeditions, and the local news in Australia found out about it and basically were just making fun of the government's inability to wrangle these ferocious creatures. Who knew emus could be so funny or victorious? Eventually, the whole thing was resolved with better fencing, which is kind of also funny. Like, we just need better fences. It's all. Anyway, the next superlative, most likely to start a revolution. I would say this could go to a tie between episode 33 and 34. But being as how the Gunpowder Plot really did not succeed in even getting the government to help their cause, has to go to the Coal Wars of West Virginia. One of the more popular episodes. This one is actually the last one before my most recent hiatus, debuting August 26th. Super interesting story and, lasting impact of the overbearing companies grinding their workers down in every possible way until they fought back. Was it like a super massive uprising? Not technically, but it was the largest one in the United States since the Civil War, which is why it's sometimes referred to as the Forgotten Civil War or the Second Civil War. Big coal using Union busters, airplanes, and bombs to smash these rebels out of their rebelliousness. I don't know that. I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway, we also met Mother Jones in that episode, one of the feistiest ladies with an really awful history of tragedy in her own family. Her tenacity and combined with the passionate, I guess, resilience of some of the others scared Big Coal, who had been abusing the workers of West Virginian mines because they were the one state that held out from Union activity. So subsequently protections, they were not given protections from the coal companies. And then, it just got crazy. We learned about the coal company stores and scrit that was used, sometimes in the worst way. And then we heard the soulful voice of one Terry Reid. Got to use or include a little bit of music into the episode, which was cool. And yeah, I don't know. It obviously was super popular. It's funny, as I'm recording this, it's actually number 2 in top episodes of the year, which is pretty cool. Anyway, since they didn't get to tie with the Coal Wars, this next one is the biggest drama queen. Theatrical, explosive, and a little bit tragic, the Gunpowder Plot wins the crown for most dramatic. Take a bow, Guy Fawkes. This one, debuting just a few weeks ago on December 16th, was a kind of a return to form for me, taking a random event that is, subplot material in a movie that I've loved forever, V for Vendetta, and then finding this very interesting and twisted tale it's something I like to do. I'm watching one random thing and I'm like, I'd love to talk about that. And then I do. Anyway, the background of the Protestant Reformation and how it directly led to the Catholic ostracization in England, which oppressed the Irish and set the stage for the Puritans to flee to the New World, and was definitely, not what I was expecting to find. Didn't think that it would be related to very much stuff. And it turns out it's actually connected to quite a bit. Super fun in terms of finding a good topic like that. I don't expect to get these random rabbit holes, but when I do and they have gold, it makes it so much more fun for me. The plot itself was also super interesting, how they plotted to keep it secret, but ultimately how they were deceived by someone in their midst who wrote the famous Monteagle letter and gave up the goose as it was. It was also interesting to note that Guy Fawkes Day, named after the most famous man in the conspirators, was not even the main plotter. This is Robert Catesby. Full of drama, beginning to end. Wouldn't change a thing. This topic is also worthy of our next superlative, most likely to blow something up. Makes sense. 36 barrels of gunpowder, enough to level the House of Lords and cause some serious devastation had the plot not been foiled. Next superlative, most likely to be remembered forever, and that goes to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. from January 15th. And I mean, what can I say about this episode that hasn't already been said, or about him in general? Timeless, iconic, source of inspiration for so many people. This episode also enabled me to tell my own personal tale of pilgrimage that I took. I traveled through some of the major locations of the civil rights movement, shared these emotional moments, along with, the feelings I felt while visiting the tombs of Dr. King and his wife Coretta, and these many moments of his life, seeing the hotel room and the location in which he was assassinated and the position in which the shooter took. It was very crazy. Also, first episode, I played with introducing audio that wasn't my own voice into the intro or background music. I played a section of his speech, which is called The Drum Major, and that part was actually a part that was used in his own eulogy, at his funeral, which is a super powerful moment. And yeah, I don't know. Anyway, moving on. The biggest overachiever. This one goes to Alexander the Great, obviously. This is actually a tie. I mean, it does make sense for me to give it to him since he conquered so much, right? Such a fast time. He's a shoe-in. I think also more appropriate and less obvious pick would be the Harlem Hell Fighters. The Harlem Hell Fighters episode from the 5th of March taught us all about the 369th Regiment of World War I, who broke barriers and represented the United States in a way that they wouldn't have been able to do had the U.S. Army not basically gave them to the French. The 369th was an all-black unit assigned to the French army and experienced infinitely less segregation like immediately after they were moved and actually were able to see combat, which also would not have been likely. Obviously, not that anybody wants to see combat, but, you know, that is kind of the job if you are in the army. And at the time, the army was basically only using them as like trench diggers and sentries and like very like you're gonna put together where we're gonna poop basically, or like make them do all this like manual labor but not fighting. And then when they got with the French army, they participated in 191 days of fighting, longer than any other American unit in the war, which is crazy. They proved that they could go toe to toe with the Germans. The entire regiment received the Croix de Guerre, one of France's highest military honors for their bravery in combat. And then despite their excellent service, they faced racism and continued segregation when they returned home. Still, they achieved so much when they were not given the tools to do so. So that kind of makes me feel like they should get the spot. That's a good overachiever move. Like you don't get much, and then you surpass people who were given basically, you know, as much as they could have been given. Now, Alexander the Great can have best dressed, I think. So that episode came out on the 16th of April, and we went through all the myths surrounding him and his full conquest stretching across Asia Minor and far into the Parisian Empire. Now, why is he best dressed? Well, you know, you tell me you don't think he found some awesome clothes along the way. If that's not enough, tell me he didn't look badass in his general level Macedonian armor with the lion head helmet. I mean, feels like an easy pick to me. Most likely to skip class. I think that belongs to the Shadows of Success, the decline of historic companies from February 12th. This one seems like an easy connection to make. I mean, what says skipping class like profitable industry giants fading into the dust, you know? Kodak, Pontiac, Pan Am, Radio Shack. Kodak still exists in some capacity, but the others are all but gone. But the memory remains. This one was kind of fun because it went through, you know, the history of various companies and not just the times that they came from, but also where the need for them came from as well. I still miss Pontiac, you know. I see them every now and then. I just saw one the other day. So there it goes. Still running like champs. All right. So that brings us next. Most likely to make you cry. I guess this probably will depend on the person, but I picked The Final Ascent, the Challenger disaster. I think I don't know if I was ready for the emotions that came from this one. So this was from the 3rd of April. This episode went through the history of NASA, space travel, and the program that aimed to put a teacher in orbit of the Earth, you know, to try to keep popularity and importance of space exploration in the front of people's minds. This was ultimately doomed when the multiple scrubbed launches led to an unusually cold morning being the day chosen. Faulty O-rings, now frozen and stiff, failed even faster on launch of the Challenger, which caused the rocket boosters to basically explode, and the entire shuttle impacted from this 73 seconds into the launch. You know, the excitement from the astronauts and the teacher, Kristen McAuliffe, before the launch and even seconds into the launch, like you can hear the radio transmissions. I don't know. It's really hard to think about. Super sad. And I mean, if you want to, you could go listen to some of the things, but they're just so pumped. Like you can tell how amped they are. And I think that combined with like towards the end, the play-by-play basically of like the time frame, that was pretty intense, right? So altogether, the members lost were Richard Scobie, the commander, Michael J. Smith, the pilot, Ronald McNair, mission specialist, Ellison Onizuka, Mission Specialist Judith Resnick, Mission Specialist Gregory Jarvis, Payload Specialist Krista McAuliffe, Payload Specialist. Yeah, that episode was definitely enough to make someone cry. Also kind of the biggest episode on our YouTube, which was kind of cool. You know, I used a lot of, like, if you watch the show on YouTube, you know, I use a lot of pictures to try and kind of paint a picture of what I'm talking about. I don't fill the episodes with pictures because I don't want to be a slideshow. I just like to include some interesting ones that I find, you know, when I'm doing my research and I'm reading through all these different articles and things, and I find a really cool picture. I'm like, that's kind of neat. I want to share that. And so I'll save them then. You know, when I'm struggling trying to just depict what I'm talking about, I'll use a picture there. But anyway, that's also stuff you don't really need to know. But anyway, those are the superlatives. Of course, not all of the episodes. We have clubs and activities to promote as well. These are the various clubs that multiple episodes fit into. First up, Rebels Anonymous. Members of this club agree rules are meant to be broken. They fought for themselves and the betterment of others, for the most part, I would say. The Cold Wars of West Virginia, the Gunpowder Plot, and the Harlem Hell Fighters, all rabble-rousers of their day and definitely made their mark. Next, we have the Holiday Cheer Club. These clubs love to celebrate, this club loves to celebrate the holidays. They love their history with a dash of celebration. And these two are actually three, technically. That's because the history of Mother's and Father's Day is one episode, and then you have history of Christmas, but also I guess if you include all the holidays that are in that episode that I mentioned, so many. Mother's and Father's Day history came out on June 18th. And well, I mean, if you're listening to this as it comes out, last week was the Christmas episode. And both episodes were pretty interesting, surprising in how much information there actually was, and like how, I don't know, how the holidays evolved, I think is pretty cool. Also, for the Mother's and Father's Day, interesting how anti that holiday the founders or the children of the founders were about it. Ann Jarvis was the person who inspired the creation of Mother's Day. Her daughter, named Anna, petitioned for a day to remember mothers because of her humanitarian work. Father's Day set up with William Jackson Smart being the man in mind, but also partially inspired by the creation of Mother's Day as well. Then last week, we learned about all sorts of history connected to Christmas, not only the origins of the holiday, but so many traditions, and most of them German. So the art club, this one belongs to two, actually. Of course, When Paint Bleeds, Vandalism and Resurrection of Art from the 27th of March. That episode, super duper fun because it covered so many things I enjoyed. History, boom. Art, boom, boom. I also got to explain some of the history of art in terms of the evolution of styles, and hopefully this was helpful to my non-artsy friends who felt the topic confusing or daunting in some way. We discussed the reason why contemporary art strayed from realism, partially due to the camera being popular, but also because of the horrors witnessed in World War II. Then, of course, the painting Who's Afraid of Red, Yellow, and Blues being slashed up in lengthy and poor effort to repair it. Second in the art club is Ancient Maya. Their decorative structures definitely count as art. And in addition to that, their writing method, which was developed uniquely to them and being one of only 7-ish in history to be done in this way, super impressive. And it's a lot of pictures also, so that's cool. We learn about the potential origins of the Mesoamerican and indigenous populations of both North and South America, and the Maya and their influence on other cultures, and the poorly described disappearance of them, which is no more than them leaving lands that were no longer serving them, retreating into different cities into the jungle, and eventually being absorbed into rising cultures and then dominated by conquistadors when they eventually showed up. Although still to this day, there are Mayans or Maya that remain. Lastly, we have the Drama Club. These topics brought the drama and then some. Of course, we have Gunpowder Plot once again, Alexander the Great, also not surprised, and the not so great Emu War. These topics all had some drama of some type. Yeah, those are the clubs that represent the year that we've had. In addition to clubs, we also visited a lot of places. So now we're going to look at the field trips that we've taken. I actually started this year off with a tour around the United States through the lens of places that I've called home in hometown history. Starting with the history of Nebraska, we learned about Nevada and Washington State as well, and then Wisconsin, which kind of a fun episode to do. And it wasn't like about me, it was just about the places that I had lived, but very fun. And then after that, traveled to the Outback, see what all the fuss was about the Emu War. Then we visited the birthplace of Dr. King, Atlanta, Georgia, and then visited some other places pertinent to the civil rights movement, such as Washington, D.C., Memphis, Tennessee, and Selma, Alabama. Following that trip, we journeyed up to Canada on the 22nd of January to see what that sweet, sweet syrup barons were up to. We learned a lot about that. The syrup syndicate taught us how much cutthroat craziness is behind the scenes of that delightful maple syrup. And also hilarious that the nicest country, the Canadians, hiding some dark secrets when it comes to, their maple syrup. Then we traveled around the United States and even parts of South America for the Shadows of Success. South America being where the origins of Pan Am began, and then East Coast for Radio Shack, and I believe Kodak as well. And then the heart of Michigan for Pontiac. Then off to the the Western Front with the Harlem Hell Fighters. They were in parts of France, but also in Germany. And then all over the place, kind of with When Paint Bleeds, because, we discussed historical movements in art and then modern art movement before going, to the Netherlands to witness the assault on the painting Who's Afraid of Red, Yellow, and Blue by Barnett Newman. We then traveled back to the United States, visit various sites and expeditions of NASA in the Final Ascent episode, tracing all of the pieces of the space agency all across the United States, then to Kennedy Space Center to witness its last flight. Following this, we hopped in our time machine, go back to ancient Macedonia to witness the wunderkind that was Alexander the Great. We hovered in the ancient world for a bit, witnessed the various financial crimes in ancient times with bribery, tax fraud, insurance fraud, and good old-fashioned extortion in ancient Greece, Rome, kind of all over, really. Then back to the United States in the late 19th century to meet the inspirations for both Mother's and Father's Day, which was probably our most wholesome episode, I think. Christmas might be up there too, but anyway. Then into the time machine once more, trace the earliest instances of people in the Americas, finding the roots of the ancient Maya and some other Mesoamerican cultures before settling in the Maya lowlands and highlands to watch their rise and poorly named disappearance. Then after that, back to the 19th and 20th century, where we witnessed coal companies abusing their workers in so many nefarious ways. Then Elizabethan England, watched our Gunpowder Plot fail before our eyes, and then traveling the world once more in the Christmas episode. So here you have it. That's all the places. Next year, got a lot more traveling planned. I'm excited for that. All right, so some stats now, starting with what you, the listeners, have actually, listened to the most. I have some stats from the hosting site, but before I realized that, I was just going to go off of the Spotify Wrapped for this year because everybody gets one for all the music that they listen to, but creators on Spotify get one too. So as a podcast, I got one. And it kind of lines up. But anyway, this year, the most popular episode was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which is pretty cool. According to Spotify, it was listened to 155% more than the other episodes this year, which is also pretty cool. I think this episode was so popular due to how much passion was put into creating it. I didn't want to do a bad job, and I don't like to write things that I do not enjoy. I think there's some topics where I do enjoy them, but I lose interest partway through. That might even be obvious to you sometimes, but this episode in particular was one that I didn't feel like I was losing any steam on. I was ready to keep going. Yeah. And then having that recording played at the end, which I talked about, where he eulogized himself. I think that had a little bit to do with it, but also it was at the end, and statistically people drop off towards the end. So maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, pretty cool to see. The Cold Wars is actually second, I mentioned. And that's more impressive because it came out in August as opposed to January. All right. Some stats for the year, according to Spotify, is that our listener base increased 82%. with 85% more followers and 23% more streams, which is cool. Said that we were listened to in 12 different countries, but our hosting site says 27, which is awesome. Outside the United States, we were most heard in Australia, good eye mate, and in Japan, not doing that accent. The UK, hello governor. Canada. Yeah. So that's pretty sweet. The most popular month for downloads was January. Shocking absolutely no one is that it dropped off in July and then again in September because I had some breaks in action. Statistically, we actually had very similar numbers in 2023. The issue in that being that only half a year of 2023, which is, I started in late July, and we technically did release episodes all 2024. The glaring issue being my inconsistency and overworking myself and just good old fashioned procrastination. But like I said, I think I'm in a good place now. Keep focused, keep grinding, putting out solid stuff. Next year, I'd definitely like to keep as true to 4 episodes a month as I can, which I believe have a good rhythm going. Pretty excited about that. I would also like to be more active in both podcasts and creating online content. It's super hard to get in the groove of, but once you do, it's important to be on, not only on YouTube, but on TikTok, obviously, and then Instagram, like short videos on all the things. And I need to be more consistent with that. But, gotta spread the word however I can. So doing that and, just getting out there in any way possible. I'm going to try to do some guest hosting or just guest spotting on different podcasts to try and do some networking a little bit. And yeah, those are the goals I have for this coming year. Consistency is the focus. All right. So we're gonna end with this thing with typical yearbook fashion, right? Remedial Scholar, class of 2024. Last song, We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel. Inspired by the Gunpowder Plot. Senior quote, which is, keep questioning the past, the future will thank you. You may have noticed this being the new way I sign off. I thought it was a nice way to end the episode. And also, way back when I was starting this podcast, the hosting site I use actually had a prepare to start your podcast class almost. It was you watch these videos and learn different things that are helpful, not necessarily required, but helpful. And one of the things it talked about was a, signing off phrase. And this is one that I was thinking about, and I was like, man, that's kind of cheesy. But then I was like, well, the whole idea of having a podcast is kind of cheesy anyway, so might as well go full tilt in it, right? Anyway, so that's that. A class motto, from ancient ruins to modern revolutions, history is our guide. I think this is more related to how I evolved from not only talking about ancient stories, but now incorporating more recent history, which has opened my topic pool up quite nicely. Lastly, there are some senior quotes I would like to read off. First one, the emus may have won the battle, but they'll never win the war. Australian military, probably. Next, coal miner from the West Virginia Coal Wars says, pickaxes and dynamite, the tools of change. And Guy Fawkes from the Gunpowder Plot says, same. And lastly, history is written by the victors and sometimes by the vandals, which is Gerard Jan van Blatteren, the Vandal from When Paint Bleeds episode. Anyway, as we wrap up the class of 2024, I want to leave you with some teasers of what will be coming next year. We're going to be going global one more time through various means. Obviously, we're going to spend some time in Russia, maybe go skiing or hiking, follow another circumnavigational attempt, visit the dark alleys of London, follow the radio waves on actual waves, take a trip to Mongolia. We got a lot going on. Pretty excited about it. If you are inspired by any of these or anything that I've talked about today, obviously feel free to suggest some topics. Worst that can happen is I never do it. So really no risk. If you can't think of anything specific topic-wise, you can also just send in a theme. I might be able to pull something from that. Several episodes this year came from random moments like the When Paint Bleeds episode and the Gunpowder Plot. So feel free. I mean, I might be able to find something. You can comment on Facebook, YouTube, click the link tree in the link. You can click the link tree link in the description, and then there's an email topic suggestion button on the link tree. Otherwise, you can email it at remedialscholar@gmail.com. Also, feel free to comment your favorite moment of the year, whether it's a topic, a random joke I made, cover art, whatever. I'd love to hear from you, so please feel free. And thank you to everyone who has made 2024 an incredible year for me and the show. Whether you laughed, cried, learned something new, I hope these episodes brought history to life in a meaningful way. Thank you for supporting me through my inconsistencies, and thank you for buying the merch and sharing the show whenever possible. Until next year, keep questioning the past. The future will thank you. Bye.